This is the second lesson. This lesson I want to focus on Rashi and Ramban. The second most famous Torah commentary after Rashi is the Ramban, who was Rav Moshe ben Nachman. He lived after Rashi about 150 years, 1194 till 1274. He lived his whole life in Spain until his old age, when eventually came to Eretz Yisrael. He came to the city of Akku, and there he is buried in 1274. Rashi lived in northern France before the beginning of the Crusades. The Ramban lived in Spain. He was a Sephardi in a hostile Christian environment. The Ramban has a famous debate with a Christian about Judaism. Rashi and Ramban represented different learning traditions. Rashi in Northern Europe, an Ashkenazi tradition, the Ramban in Sephardic Spanish tradition. Each has their own unique style of learning. And in spite of their differences, Rashi and Ramban converged in their answers to explain both Pshat and Drash. The Ramban, who came after Rashi didn't know about the Ramban, obviously, is after his lifetime. The Ramban was the first Spanish scholar to be aware of and appreciate the Northern European Ashkenazic schools of commentary. And Ramban had much respect for Rashi. Excuse me. In the beginning of the Ramban's commentary on the Chumash, he has a poem, in Hebrew, of course. I will translate part of the poem for you. I will place for my enlightenment the lights of the pure candelabrum, the commentaries of our teacher, Reb Shlomo, which is Rashi. To him is the right of the firstborn, meaning he was the first important Torah commentator. And with his word we'll have discussions, investigations, and examinations. In his Pshat and Drash and Agadot, which are mentioned in this commentary. And the Ramban actually argued with Rashi frequently, and it's important to understand that there are differences and their similarities. If we take a look at the fourth chapter of Bereshis about the flood, the eighth chapter, the fourth verse in Parshas Noach, we find an interesting Ramban comment about Rashi, which teaches us something very interesting. It says in the eighth chapter, Posuk Daled, and the Teva, the ark, rested on the 17th day of the 7th month on Mount Ararat. On this, Rashi says the ark was submerged in the Rashi 11 cubits in the water. 11 cubits went down into the water. He concluded this from Medrash and from calculation. On this, the Ramban writes, this, what Rashi said, 11 cubits, is based on a Medrash. But since Rashi himself closely examined Medrashim and strove to find the Pshat in spite of the Medrash, Ramban says, he has given us permission to do likewise, because there are 70 faces to the Torah, and many Medrashim contradict one another. Therefore, I give a different interpretation to these words. Ramban, ironically, uses Rashi to give him the authority to argue with Rashi, even though Rashi's source was a Medrash. Ramban says it wasn't 11 cubits, it was much less than that, for various reasons. The boats in those days did not have to come down to a point at the bottom. It was like a raft, so it couldn't have gone down 11 cubits. I won't go into the nitty-gritty, but what's interesting is that he argues with Rashi, and Rashi is a Medrash. I'll point out two things here. Number one, Rashi claimed he was interested in Pshat more than Drash, and Ramban says, I caught him in his own game, because Pshat cannot be what Rashi says, even though it's based on a Medrash. But I want to point out something very unusual, which is very rarely understood. It's a tradition in Torah commentary that later commentaries do not argue with previous ones. In the Gemara, an Amora who came after a Tana will not argue with a Tana. And a Rishon will not argue with an Amora. And an Achron will not argue with a Rishon, usually. He'll need some support to give him the courage to argue with a Rishon. Here the Ramban argues with a Medrash. The Medrash says it was submerged 11 cubits. We can't interpret. This is a historical fact. If we lived at the time of the flood, we would see it was either 11 cubits under the water or it was not. The Ramban says it was not. I disagree with the Medrash, which is an interesting point. And I think the reason is because once we're into Medrash, all things go. But when we're into Pshat, logic rules supreme, even over a previous comment, a more authoritative commentary. Okay. Let's go further with the Ramban and Rashi. Rashi and Ramban differences. In the very beginning of the Chumash, the first pasuk, Bereshis bara Elokim et hashamayim v'et haaretz, Rashi says, along Rashi, the Torah should have begun with HaChodesh Hazeh Rosh Chodoshim, Perek Yud Bet and Shmos. This is the first of our 12 months, says Rashi, because this was the first mitzvah given to Klal Yisrael. In Book of Bereshis, there's Pru or Revu, which was given to mankind. There's Brit Milah, and there's a third mitzvah, Brit Milah, Shachati Kerega, the third mitzvah. But this was the first mitzvah given to Am Yisrael as a people. Rosh Chodesh, and what was the first mitzvah? After Rosh Chodesh was the mitzvah of Pesach, of course. So Rashi says, since the Chumash is a book of halacha, it should have been with the first halacha to Am Yisrael. In his long comment, he says why it had to begin in Bereshis. Because it had to begin with the fact that the Jews went down to slavery, and Pesach was the exit from slavery. The Ramban disagrees with Rashi in the following way. Ramban says, one could ask, indeed there's a great need to begin the Torah within the beginning, because this is the root of our faith that we believe that God was the creator of the world, Haborei Olam, he was the creator. And he who does not believe God was the creator is not, is a denier of the Torah Kula. He has no part in the Torah, says Ramban. Ramban says, Rashi says, why do we begin with this? Let's begin with this, which is mitzvahs. Ramban says, no. Philosophy is also part of Torah. And theology is also part of Torah. If I don't know that God created the world, I could not believe that he's the creator of the world. And it's an essential belief in Torah. Ramban was a philosopher. Rashi was a halachic codifier. So this really exemplifies Rashi's approach to Chumash and Ramban's approach to Chumash. Let me give another example of the difference between Rashi and Ramban. In Bereshis, 37th chapter, sentence 15, we discussed when Yosef was looking for his brothers. We discussed the word Dotan before last time. But when Yosef was looking for his brothers, it says, and a man found him by himself. Eho Ish, and a man found him. Rashi says, Ha'ish hazeh is Gavriel. Gavriel was a malach. Gavriel was a malach. In other words, Rashi is saying, Yosef met this man who looked like a man, but he was a malach. A malach doesn't get married. A malach doesn't die. A malach is not a human being. He's a malach. He's an angel. Ramban's commentary on this pasuk is important for us. The verse said he was straying from the road, not knowing where to go, and he entered a field since he was looking for them, and they had sheep, and he knew they would be pasturing in a field. It also informed us, this is an important point, of the divine decree is true and that man's efforts are worthless. The Holy One, blessed be He, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, sent him an unwitting guide, meaning it's Gabriel, this man in the field, didn't know he was serving God's purpose when he saw Yosef, in order to bring him to his brother's hands. In other words, God's plan was Yosef go to his brothers, sell them into slavery. Jews became slaves. You see, it's Mitzrayim. All Jewish history would have been different if he never found his brothers. They never would have sold him into slavery. They never would have gone down to get him. And there never would have been a servitude in Egypt. So what Ramban says on that posuk is, God sent us this man in order to teach us that God's will be done and that there's no changing it. And the very end of his comment is, it is this which the sages Chazal meant when they said this man was an angel, for these events did not occur without purpose, but rather to teach us the counsel of Shem, Atzat Hashem Hi Takum. The plan of God will exist. In other words, Ramban is saying something different from Rashi. It's illustrative. Rashi says this man was an angel. Ramban says this man was an angel in a different sense. A malach, malachim are messengers too. A malach is a messenger, it's also an angel. He was a messenger in the sense that he helped God's plan develop as God wanted it to develop. That Yosef should get to his brothers, they would be upset with him, sell him to the Egyptians, etc., etc. And that's what it says Ramban, and that's what Chazal mean, that this man was an angel. So we see the difference between Rashi. For Rashi, he was an angel, not a real human being. For Ramban, he was an angel, he was a human being. He could have been married with children, would live and die, but he was an angel in a different sense. Ramban takes Chazal differently from the way Rashi takes it literally. He was an angel, superhuman being. Ramban says he was an angel, but not in that sense. He was an angel in the sense that he was a messenger of God. This gives us a good understanding of the difference between Rashi and Ramban. Rashi will take a medrash quite literally, usually. Ramban, on the other hand, will take a medrash and probe its depth and its deeper meaning. Let's leave it at that. So while both Rashi and Ramban are interested in Pshat and Drash, Ramban stresses Pshat more than Rashi does, and Ramban understands Medrash different from the way Rashi does. Let's leave it here for this class. Okay? Do we have some more time?
Yeah. Good. What about the answer?
Huh?
You asked a question last time.
I didn't give an answer to the question, right? The answer to the question, last time I asked the question about Datan, was a city, and Rashi gives its meaning, and Kaziv was a city. Rashi says, Pashup Pshat has no meaning. The answer is logical. In the first verse, and he was in Kaziv when she gave birth, it's not necessary. Who needs to know that? Just say he wasn't here when she gave birth. The fact that he was in Kaziv is irrelevant to the story. So Rashi says, when it's irrelevant, but the Chumash says it anyways, it has a deeper meaning. On the other hand, when the angel was asked, where did they go? They went to Dotan. He had to answer the question. He had to say the city. He couldn't have said bloop, bloop, bloop. He must have. So the name of the place was essential to the story, and therefore don't look for any deeper meaning. When the name of the town was unnecessary and irrelevant, in such a case we can look for its meaning. Okay, let me just add one other thing. Another commentary beside the Ramban, who referred to Rashi, we say Ramban frequently argues with Rashi, the Rashbam of Shmuel ben Meir was Rashi's grandson. Rashi had 3 daughters. One of the daughters married a man by the name of Meir, and she had a child with him by the name of Shmuel. Shmuel, the Rashbam, was Rashi's grandson. He lived from 10,085 to 11,058. His life overlapped Rashi's life by about 15 or 20 years. Not only that, but the Rashbam records in chapter 37 of his commentary that I had many discussions with my grandfather, meaning Reb Shlomo Rashi. Many discussions with him, and he admitted to me, says the Rashbam, giving his secrets away, he admitted to me that had he written his Torah commentary again, he would have had much more pshat in it. Hapshatam mischadshus b'chol yom. Pshat, which comes up every day, which we can discover. Which means that Rashi himself was, in a sense, strange to say, disappointed with his own commentary. He would have changed it had he had the opportunity. That's what his grandson, the Rashbam, says. The Rashbam himself is much more pshat-oriented than his grandfather, Rashi, and he argued with Rashi many times about pshat and drash. Next time we'll take a look at Rashi and his use of medrash in our next year.